Ed Sullivan said he would never let 8 people on his show again. For 23 years, people watched Ed Sullivan on television every Sunday night. He always looked very serious, never smiled. Even though Ed Sullivan looked calm, he had a bad temper. When he got angry, it was very bad for the people who performed on his show if they made him mad. Ed Sullivan could make sure they never worked on television again. Sullivan had the ability to make someone's career take off with one invitation to be on his show. He could also destroy a career just as fast if he decided to ban someone. A former executive from CBS said this. This person worked with Sullivan a lot back in the 1960s. Sullivan knew how power he had. Every Sunday night, 60 million Americans would watch a show. If you got to be on the show, it could make you a big star. If you did something wrong, it could also make it so nobody in the entertainment business wanted to work with you anymore. Sullivan's show was that important. One mistake could make you unwelcome not just on his show, but everywhere in the entertainment industry. Tonight we are going to talk about the 8 performers who did something that Ed Sullivan thought was very bad. They did not listen to what Ed Sullivan told them to do on his television show. This was not a small mistake or a little disagreement about music. These performers and Ed Sullivan had arguments about what they should do on his show. They had fights on the stage and big shouting matches behind the scenes. To understand why Ed Sullivan got so upset, we need to go to the 1960s when rock and roll music was becoming very popular and people were starting to question the rules. Ed Sullivan was an important person in television at that time. Number 1. The Doors and how they did things their way. The Doors were supposed to play their song Light My Fire on the Ed Sullivan Show on September 17, 1967. This was a big deal for the Doors. It could make their career. Just before they went on television, a man from CBS came to talk to the Doors. He told them that Ed Sullivan wanted them to change some of the words to Light My Fire. The part that said, "Girl, we couldn't get much higher," had to be changed because it sounded like it was about doing drugs. The Doors did not want to change the words to Light My Fire. The band nodded in agreement. They seemed like they would do what they were told. Jim Morrison was being really weird. You could not tell what he was thinking, but when he was backstage, he did not show any signs of causing trouble. When the red light came on, Morrison looked into the camera and sang the original lyric. He really focused on the word higher. It was like he meant to say it. Ed told Morrison not to say that line. A person who was working backstage at the time remembered what happened next. Morrison sang it anyway. You could see the look on Sullivan's face change away. His face went from looking okay to being really angry in a second. The red light and Morrison singing that lyric really upset Sullivan. Sullivan was really good at keeping it on the air, but as soon as the song was over and the show went to a commercial break, he lost his cool backstage. The moment the cameras stopped rolling, Sullivan just let it all out. He was so angry about what had happened with the song. Sullivan was furious. He made sure everyone backstage knew about it. The show was off the air. Sullivan was still going strong with his anger. Sullivan got really mad at Morrison. Said the Doors would never be on his show again. Morrison just gave him a smile, which made Sullivan even angrier. What really got to Sullivan was that Morrison had pretended to go along with things, then did the opposite on live television. This made Sullivan feel like he was not in charge of his show anymore. Sullivan told the people he worked with that he could handle it if someone said no to him. He could not handle being lied to and made to look stupid. Sullivan was still thinking about how Morrison had deceived him and the Doors. The Doors did something that got them banned for good. It is funny that this actually helped them become more popular with people who did not like mainstream culture of hurting their career. The Doors got a lot of attention from this. It really helped the Doors. Number 2. Bo Diddley and one song that changed everything. On November 20th, 1955, Bo Diddley went to CBS Studio 50 to be on the Ed Sullivan Show. Bo Diddley was a rock and roll musician. This music was still very new. For Bo Diddley, who was a performer, this was a big chance to be seen by the whole country. At that time, America was segregated, which made it very hard for performers like Bo Diddley. The people who worked for Ed Sullivan told Bo Diddley to sing Tennessee Ernie Ford song's 16 tons of his own songs. Diddley did what he was told when they were getting ready to film. When it was time to start recording, he started playing the song that everyone knows is his Bo Diddley. The people in the control room were really scared. Sullivan was standing on the side watching everything. He got so angry that his face turned purple. The people watching on television thought the show was exciting and normal. Behind the scenes, Sullivan was very embarrassed. Soon as Bo Diddley left the stage, Sullivan told him that he would never be allowed to come back on the show again. Some people are still talking about whether Bo Diddley did this on purpose, or if he just did not understand what was going on. This is especially confusing because Sullivan had introduced Bo Diddley on the air saying that he was going to play his song. No matter why Bo Diddley did it, Sullivan was very upset. He was not going to forgive him. The punishment was immediate. Bo Diddley was never going to be on the show again. Sullivan was very serious about this. Bo Diddley was never invited back to the show. Number 3. Jackie Mason and the finger that ended a career. So Jackie Mason was on the show for the time on October 18, 1964. He was doing his thing being funny when the host, Sullivan, started telling him to hurry up because they were running out of time. Jackie Mason saw Sullivan trying to get his attention, so he made a move with his hand. Sullivan thought Jackie Mason was giving him the finger, which is a very bad thing to do on live television, especially back then. Sullivan thought Mason had flipped him off. Mason said that was not what he meant to do. Sullivan would not listen. The week Sullivan said on the radio that Mason had made a bad gesture and was not allowed to come back. When Sullivan said that it hurt Mason's career bad. Mason could not get any jobs. At nightclubs, people did not want him on television. Mason did not have much money anymore. Mason took Sullivan to court for saying things about him, and a long time later Sullivan said sorry to the public, saying that maybe people got the wrong idea about what he did. By that time, the harm was already done. What makes this situation really sad is that it seems like it was a big mistake that got blown out of proportion because Sullivan got angry and would not change his mind. This showed how much power Sullivan really had. When he was mad at someone, everyone found out about it. His personal feelings became like judgments against people, and that is a pretty scary thing. Number 4. Buddy Holly and the quiet rebellion Sullivan could not forgive. On January 26, 1958, Buddy Holly and the Crickets were going to be on the show for the time. The people in charge of the show wanted Buddy Holly and the Crickets to sing along to a recording of playing their music live. Buddy Holly and his band were very proud of their music. They did not like this idea at all. They said okay, but when they got on stage, they did things their way to show they were not happy. Buddy Holly and the Crickets were not going to let people tell them what to do, so they found a way to rebel against the people in charge. Holly changed the words to the songs a bit and played with a look that said they did not really care. It was clear that they were not really into it. This was not an angry statement, but it was definitely rude. Sullivan saw it away. When the show was over, he told the people who work with Holly that the band could not come back. Sullivan thought Holly was full of themselves and did not appreciate what they had. The punishment Sullivan gave was really harsh compared to what Holly did wrong. It made sense to Sullivan. He did not like it when people questioned his power, even if they did it in a way. Holly could no longer be on the popular show in America, and a little over a year later his life ended very sadly. Sullivan did not have to think about forgiving Holly. For Sullivan, this was not about work. It was about his feelings towards Holly. Sullivan thought it was personal because Holly had challenged him. Number 5. Sly Stone and the chaos Sullivan could not control. In February 1970, Sly and the Family Stone were at the top of their game. They had just put out the album Stand and had given one of the best performances at Woodstock. Getting Sly and the Family Stone on the show was a deal for the Ed Sullivan Show. The Ed Sullivan Show was trying to stay cool and relevant, as music was changing fast at the end of the 1960s. Problems started happening right away with Sly and the Family Stone. When Sly Stone got to the studio to practice, you could tell something was off. He was really late, did not seem okay. had a lot of people with him who just wanted to have fun instead of getting ready for the live show on television. One of the people in charge of the stage said that Sly Stone did not make sense and could not do what he was told. Sly Stone would walk away, in the middle of recording, change how the songs were supposed to go, and sometimes just stop playing music to say things that nobody understood about the music or anything else. Sly Stone was just not himself that day. The band just could not get through a practice without something going wrong. They would try to rehearse. Then something would fall apart with the band. This was really frustrating for the band because they wanted to get everything. The band was having a lot of trouble getting things right. The situation was getting really bad, so Sullivan himself went down to the stage. He does not usually do this when they are rehearsing. What he saw made him think that things were as bad as he thought they would be. The performers were missing their cues things were being. One of the performers could not even do a live broadcast that made sense. Number 6. Robert Mitchum. The Hollywood guy meets the toughest boss on television. Robert Mitchum was a cool guy who starred in a lot of movies. People in Hollywood thought he was one of the leading men around. When Robert Mitchum went on the Ed Sullivan show to talk about his movie, the people who worked on the show thought it would be a normal visit. But what they saw was Robert Mitchum and the boss having a disagreement that ended with Robert Mitchum never being on the show again. Robert Mitchum was a star, and the people who worked on the Ed Sullivan show did not expect this to happen to Robert Mitchum. Mitchum showed up smelling like he had been drinking. He did not seem to care about doing what the director told him to do. The director tried to help Mitchum with the scene. Mitchum talked down to him in a way that made everyone in the room feel uncomfortable. As they kept rehearsing, Mitchum started to make fun of everything. When Sullivan came to watch the scene, Mitchum began to copy the way Sullivan stood and talked in a stiff way. Mitchum was not being very obvious about it. It was clear what he was doing. He was only doing it to make fun of Sullivan. Mitchum was trying to entertain himself at Sullivan's expense. Number 7. Lenny Bruce, the comic who was too hot for Sunday night. Lenny Bruce was different from performers who were on Sullivan's blacklist because Lenny Bruce never got to be on the show. They banned Lenny Bruce before he even had a chance to perform. As Lenny Bruce became known for doing comedy that was controversial, Sullivan decided that Lenny Bruce was not a fit for a show that was meant for families to watch together. When people mentioned Bruce's name for booking meetings, Sullivan said no way. Back in the 1960s, Bruce was famous for getting arrested because of the bad words he used and the things he talked about on stage. He would talk about God and politics and sex and the color of people's skin. Sullivan did not want to take a chance on Bruce. He thought that entertainment should make people feel good and bring them together, not make them feel bad or upset. Sullivan liked things that were nice and safe. Bruce was not that kind of guy. He was the kind of guy who liked to talk about Bruce and the things that Bruce did, like making people think about Bruce and his comedy. Number 8. Elvis Presley and the temporary ban that changed television history. On January 6, 1957, Elvis Presley went back to the Ed Sullivan show for his show that he had to do. People really liked watching Elvis Presley before. A lot of people did not like the way he moved his hips. They thought it was not a thing to do on television. Ed Sullivan did not want Elvis Presley on his show at first. Now, he had a big problem. Unlike other performers who were permanently banned, Presley was simply managed. His popularity made exclusion impossible. Sullivan had to compromise, revealing the limits of his authority. While he could ban most performers without consequence, Presley's cultural power forced accommodation. In the end, the episode demonstrated that even television's most powerful gatekeeper could be overruled by overwhelming public demand.